If I was the devil, my first victim would be the kids. From the moment they left their mother's precious wombs and were born, I would condition them to see racial division as a norm. And I wouldn't stop till I've stripped their innocence, divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book of Genesis. And see, as they grew up, I would continue my infiltration. For 12 years, I would steal their hearts and minds from them and call it education. If I was the devil, my next victim would be women. I'd make old, out-of-touch men control women's bodies and rights. What better way to curse God than to disrespect the very bringers of life? Speaking of God, if I was the devil when it comes to religion, I put my plan together perfectly. I'd allow you to worship Jesus every Sunday, and on the other 6 days, I'd make you worship me. In the form of money, fame, lust, and greed, to my religion, I wouldn't need to convert you. I'd turn the 10 commandments to the 10 suggestions and make virtue signaling more important than virtue. I'd give you just enough religion to hate each other, but not enough to love each other. And for my final evil strategy, I'd make you forget the whole purpose of religion was spirituality. If I was the devil, I wouldn't come dressed in a red cape and pointy horns. I'd drive a Lambo, have a pretty face and a Gucci belt on. Basically, I'd take the form of everything you ever wished for and watch you create your own hell. I don't need to torch the earth. And as far as politicians go, I'd change nothing. They're already doing my dirty work. If I was the devil low-key, I'd be behind the scenes. You wouldn't have to see me. I would normalize dysfunction and call it reality TV. And in this reality, I would attack your self-worth, making it hard to heal from. I'd show you images of fake bodies and make them more attractive than real ones. If I was the devil, I'd make you pray to technology and idolize those who create it. I'd make clout the #1 drug and steal millions of lost souls as they chased it. Now, if I was the devil, I wouldn't do it all at once. I'd take my time instead. I'd eat away at your morals little by little, exactly how cancer spreads. Speaking of cancer, if I was the devil, I'd feed you tasty food that makes you ill. Then I'd turn your doctors into drug dealers, selling you pills that keep you coming back instead of truly healed. Yeah, if I was Lucifer, then I'd know life and death are in the tongue. So I'd make your knife and fork your executioner. See, you can't achieve higher consciousness if your body is sick. You won't opt for positive information if you have inflammation. If I was Satan, my cleverness would be admired. Why do you think the word inflammation literally means to set on fire? If I was the devil, I'd show you how to really flex. I would release pandemics on the world to give people the chance to really care for each other and then sit back and laugh as they exploited and became scared of each other. Basically, if I was the devil, I'd keep doing what I'm doing. God is my witness. I already control your systems. Don't try to fight against this. 'Cause for my last trick, I would make smart people like you doubt whether I ever existed.
I must be myself. I cannot break myself any longer for you. If you can love me for what I am, we shall be the happier. If you cannot, I will still seek to deserve that you should. The great 19th century American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson believed that to flourish we must be a nonconformist. If we just think as others think and do as others do, we limit our potential and place our health or sickness at the mercy of social forces beyond our control. In this video, we are going to explore the dangers of conformity, what nonconformity meant for Emerson, and how the nonconformists act as a force of good in a society gone mad. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist, wrote Emerson. To be a conformist is to orient your life around the dominant norms, values and ideals of our society. It is to allow the boundaries and templates of our culture to shape our sense of self. Most of us become conformists without reflecting on what we are doing. We see everyone around us conforming, and so it feels natural to do the same. But conformity comes at a price. Whereas Emerson stated in a lecture given in 1844, I pay a destructive tax on my conformity. In any society, only certain character traits are favoured by the trends of conformity, while many others, which may be healthy in their own right, are looked upon with indifference or disdain. In our day, for example, extroversion is favoured over introversion, obedience over disobedience, and risk aversion over risk taken. Some people may find their inner nature fits the mould of conformity, but many will find the opposite. For those of us in the latter group, conformity is akin to wearing a mask made to fit the mould of another's face. The mask of conformity never feels comfortable, and at times it may cause us to feel like a fraud or imposter. Conformity also leads to wasted time, wasted opportunities, and wasted resources. In the need to satisfy others and maintain appearances, we do things we do not value, say things we do not believe, and obtain things we do not need. Whereas Emerson writes, custom gives me no power therefrom and runs me in debt to boot. We spend our income for 100 trifles, I know not what, and not for the things of a man. Our expense is almost all for conformity. But the dangers of conformity reach pathological levels when, as in our day, as a society becomes infected with the lies, politicians lie almost as frequently as they open their mouths. A degenerate education system teaches lies on topics ranging from science to history, ethics, economics and politics. The media lies about world events while corporations lie to us about the value or safety of their products. With no shortage of lies percolating throughout society, the modern path of conformity leads in errant ways. It encourages us to go into debt to buy things we do not need, to consume unhealthy foods, to be obedient to those in power, to take pharmaceutical drugs that do more harm than good, to eschew our passion in favour of money or social status. And if we ever feel anxious or depressed, the conformist way is to distract ourselves with screens or to numb ourselves with psychotropic drugs. All goes well as long as you run with the conformist, writes Emerson. But you, who are an honest man in other particulars, know that there is alive somewhere a man whose honesty reaches to this point also, that he shall not kneel to false gods, and on the day when you meet him you sink into the class of counterfeits. If you take in a lie, you must take in all that belongs to it. To be a non-conformist in the modern world is to renounce the lies that shape our society, and to renounce the self that has been shaped by these lies. This act of renunciation paves the way for self-transformation. Or as Emerson writes, the man who renounces himself comes to himself. When we abandon the habits of conformity and stop pursuing its ideals, we clear the way for the emergence of a more authentic state of being. We take off the false mask of conformity and permit our individual personality to shine through. But our renunciation should not be limited to self-renunciation. We should also renounce our affiliations with organisations and institutions that are infiltrated by the lives of our society. For a nonconformist, according to Emerson, must stand under his or her own banner, not the banner of another. It is only as a man puts off all foreign support and stands alone that I see him to be strong and to prevail. He is weaker by every recruit to his banner. Along with the act of renunciation, the nonconformist must establish a new direction in life, as merely rejecting conformists' ways without replacing them with something new will leave us in a pit of aimless and meaningless despair. We need new pursuits to keep us occupied, new habits to keep our life structured, and new goals to give us direction. In the process of reorientating our lives, we should work with what nature has granted us as it is. By cultivating our strengths and talents and aligning our life around pursuits that we enjoy, now we unleash our power and pave the way for a great life. Or as Emerson writes, there is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him. But through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him, to till the power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do. Nor does he know until he has tried, if conformity has led us astray, and we don't know where truth lies, or what the plot of ground we are meant to till consists of. Spending time in solitude can help correct for this confusion away from the chatter and distraction of other minds. Solitude can help us understand who we are and what we want from life. There are voices, wrote Emerson, which we hear in solitude that grow faint and inaudible as we enter into the world. Emerson, however, while valuing solitude, did not believe the nonconformist should be a recluse. To flourish as a nonconformist is to strike the optimal balance between solitude and society. We must learn to live in harmony with others without the excessive need to gain their approval or to mimic their errant ways. Or as Emerson put it, solitude is impracticable and society fatal. We must keep our head in the one and our hands in the other. The conditions are met if we keep our independence yet do not lose our sympathy. Many people recognize the sickness of modern society, but few choose a path of nonconformity as the means of escape. One reason for this is fear, and specifically a fear of ridicule and rejection. The nonconformist must overcome this fear, or at least learn that constructive nonconformist action can be taken even when consumed by fear. What I must do is all that concerns me, writes Emerson, not what the people think. This rule may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after your own. But the great man is he who, in the midst of the crowd, keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. In learning to deal with ridicule and rejection, it can be helpful to recognize a constructive value to this experience. Not only does it provide us with an opportunity to cultivate the courage of acting in the face of our fears, but furthermore, those who treat us with contempt sometimes reveal truths of our character that those who care for us are too timid to point out. But even if the ridicule is not constructive, even if it is based on envy or lies, we can use the disapproval of others as motivation fuel that impels us to greater heights. And as Emerson writes, dear to us are those who love us. The swift moments we spend with them are a compensation for a great deal of misery. They enlarge our life, but dearer are those who reject us as unworthy, for they add another life, and they build a heaven before us, whereof we had not dreamed, and thereby supply to us new powers out of the recesses of the Spirit, and urge us to new and unattempted performances. If we learn to conquer the fear of ridicule and rejection, we will possess a crucial skill in the art of nonconformity. But there is another barrier that prevents many from going the way of nonconformists, and this is laziness. To cultivate our own path through life requires hard work, discipline, and a ruthless persistence of action. A nonconformist should not be passive. He should be an active agent striving to change the world. Once he selects a valuable goal, he sticks to it and is not driven off course merely because a bunch of conformists disapprove of his ways. All men have wandering impulses, fits, and starts of generosity. But when you have chosen your part, abide by it and do not weakly try to reconcile yourself with the world. If you would serve your brother because it is fit for you to serve him, do not take back your words when you find that prudent people do not commend you. Adhere to your own act and congratulate yourself if you have done something strange and extravagant and broken the monotony of a decorous age. Always do what you are afraid to do. Following a nonconformist path will make us healthier, happier, and more powerful, but it will also turn us into a force of good in the world. For the inner state of our being manifests the events of the outer world. A man will see his character emitted in the events that seem to meet him, but which exude him and accompany him. Conformists in living by lies are manifesting a sick society. The nonconformist in aligning himself with the truth of his inner nature and the truth of the world will manifest events that act as the antidote to a world gone mad. In the thought of tomorrow there is a power to upheave all the creeds of a nation, and marshal to a heaven which no epic dream was yet depicted. Every man is not so much a workman in the world as he is a suggestion of that what he should be. Men walk as prophecies of the next stage.
The controlling of governments, controlling of populations, the blood traumas, this occultism, the raping of children, the harvesting of children. All this has been going on for so long. It was so hard to come running out of a hell that nobody believed existed.
Kathy O'Brien is not unique. I wish she were, because if she were, it would mean that this problem went no further.
In 1957, I was born into a multi-generational incest-based family.
At that time, there's a criminal faction of our government that was interested in targeting children such as myself for mind control.
My victimization rose proportionately until I was used on a White House Pentagon level during the Reagan-Bush administration.
A new world order.
I was used as a sex slave and also delivered messages to and from these government leaders.
While I was still really young and all that was happening, I do remember losing my free thought.
I couldn't even think anymore to hope that there was some place where people were kind.
Secret mind control programs began in America in September of 1946 when President Harry Truman quietly authorized Project Paperclip, a U.S. government program that allowed the Department of Defense to recruit and hire high-ranking Nazi German doctors, scientists, and spies into the United States. Over 1,600 Nazis and Italian fascists and their dependents were ushered in through South America with passports and assistance provided by the Vatican and the Red Cross. The purpose of this clandestine immigration was to infiltrate American governing jurisdictions, fortify secret societies, and establish new agencies with the ongoing agenda of the New World Order. Among the imports was Werner von Braun. Von Braun led the Army's rocket development team at Redstone Arsenal, resulting in the Redstone rocket, the first rocket developed to carry a nuclear warhead. Over the next 20 years, von Braun would go on to develop missiles, plan a manned spaceflight to Mars, and design a space station that would orbit the Earth. When NASA was established in 1958, Nazi Party member von Braun became the first director of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Another prominent Nazi recruit for the U.S. was German General Reinhard Gehlen. Upon his arrival in Washington, D.C. in 1945, Gehlen met extensively with President Truman, General William Donovan, Director of Office of Strategic Services, and Allen Dulles. The objective was to reorganize American intelligence operations and transform it into the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, in 1947, which Dulles would become the director of. Reinhard Gehlen was also instrumental in creating the National Security Council, from which the National Security Act of 1947 was derived. This particular piece of legislation was implemented to protect and conceal an unconscionable number of illegal government activities, including secret mind control programs. As the U.S. government became saturated with the infiltration of Nazi intelligence, one of the more sadistic Nazi doctors, Dr. Joseph Mengele, was invited to extend his barbaric human research that he was permitted to practice in Nazi Germany. His experiments resumed in the United States in 1951 under Project Bluebird, which morphed into Project Artichoke and MK Naomi. These were the origins of what would become Project MK Ultra in 1953. The aim of these projects was outlined in a memo dated January 1952 that asks, "Can we get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against such fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation?" The data harvested from these experiments generated more experiments with the ultimate goal of controlling the entire planet by creating the New World Order. Program after program went on secretly, unbeknownst to the American public, utilizing hundreds of thousands of silent victims, most of them children.
New details are coming out in a trove of declassified documents that the agency has kept secret for years.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment. And that was wrong. Under our watch, we will no longer hide the truth from our citizens. We will act as if all that we do will see the light of day.
Under the protection of the National Security Act, the CIA would continue cloaking these programs while funding them with secret arms deals, drug operations, and human trafficking. Projects such as Operation Spellbinder, which was designed to create sleeper assassins and Manchurian candidates who would be activated when hearing a key word or a phrase. Operation Often, which attempted to harness the power of occult forces, ran concurrently to hide the reality of another insidious program. Project Monarch.
The Conference of the United Nations on International Organization is now convened.
The United States and the Soviet Union are now among the chief artisans of the new international order.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Memorandum, dated 19th of June, 1964. Subject, Soviet research and development in the field of direction and control of human behavior. Current research indicates that the Soviets are attempting to develop a technology for controlling the development of behavioral patterns among the citizenry of the USSR in accordance with politically determined requirements of the system.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Shortly before his assassination, JFK had been warning about a system operating from the shadows.
And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
Repeating, President Kennedy has been shot by a would-be assassin in Dallas, Texas. Stay tuned to CBS News for further details.
It takes more than an instant to make a real cup of coffee.
Furthermore, the same technology can be applied to more sophisticated approaches to the coding of information for transmittal to the population targets in the battle for the minds of men.
We must guard against the military-industrial complex.
Now, in this experiment, this is the apparatus we use.
Changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
The transmitter changes the message into the signal.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Research has become central, or by, or at the direction of the federal government.
You know, up to now, I kept thinking that everything science did was good. Now I'm not so sure.
We must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
On April 13, 1953, newly appointed CIA Director Allen Dulles signed off on MKUltra, the CIA's top-secret mind control project. 3 days before that, he gave a speech on the battle for men's minds to justify it.
For Dulles, it was a missive into a newly declared battle for the minds of men, and would come just weeks after he became CIA director, as a countermeasure to Soviet, quote, brainwashing. The speech effectively launched MKUltra and gave a plausible reason for the dark and disturbing research. Dulles would sign the memo, creating the CIA's most notorious secret research project just 3 days later, and ironically only a few weeks after the death of Stalin, who had ruled Soviet Russia for 25 years with an iron fist.
Super-secret Project MKUltra, as it was called, was carried out by the CIA from 1953 to 1964, and when it finally came to light during the Church Committee congressional investigations in 1975, it proved to be one of the most bizarre episodes in CIA history.
It was often dismissed as a half-cocked effort of a paranoid Cold War spy agency.
The public wouldn't even learn about the project's existence until the mid-70s.
NBC News has new information on mind experiments done 20 years ago without the patient's knowledge, experiments funded by the CIA.
The decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans.
I hope I have a reasonable moral standard.
But it was really about controlling human beings, both individually and en masse, in every way researchers could dream of.
In a recent deposition, Gottlieb conceded the CIA was interested in retrograde amnesia, or blanking out a period of time in a person's memory.
Ultra involved hundreds of different drugs and substances, hypnosis, narco-hypnosis, sleep and sensory deprivation, and other behavior modification therapies.
This information indicates the CIA was interested in learning how to erase memory.
They are former patients, part of a CIA-funded experiment, MK-Ultra.
I've heard that it was the most brutal program under MK-Ultra.
Like they had complete control over me.
Tens of thousands of people across North America and the world were involved in these experiments.
Drug testing on American citizens was more widespread than previously believed.
They included experiments secretly involving hospitals testing drugs on terminal cancer patients and enlisting prisons to experiment on criminal sexual psychopaths.
Military soldiers, civilians, inmates, hospital patients, and even children, without regard to consent.
It is doubtful that any meaningful form of consent is involved in this case.
Virtually no aspect of potential control of human beings went untested.
The work was done by the late Dr. Ewan Cameron. It involved extensive use of potentially dangerous drugs, excessive electric shock treatment, and endless tape-recorded messages to sleeping patients.
Dr. Cameron wanted to erase, rewrite, and program the mind and the person with all new thoughts and behaviors. And he used CIA and Rockefeller Foundation funding to do it.
Cameron wrote, "This was the way to make direct, controlled changes in personality." Is that what you were interested in?
And it would say over and over again the actual words that the individual had said. And Dr. Cameron's idea, apparently, was that if somebody listened to this long enough, that it would represent some kind of a breakdown, and a breakdown in a psychotherapeutic sense.
Some heard the same message 250,000 times.
MK-Ultra itself had 149 sub-projects, at least that we know about. You see, in 1972, after President Nixon fired CIA Director Richard Helms, he ordered the destruction of all MK-Ultra documents.
The committee was never able to determine the full scope of the program, since one-time CIA Director Richard Helms acknowledged that the program's records were destroyed in 1973 to avoid embarrassment.
It's only due to a clerical error that 7 boxes of financial records were spared, which were later released via FOIA request in 1977. Because of this, the public will never fully know how far MK-Ultra truly went.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
The CIA files that were made public were referred to in testimony by participants in the project, such as Dr. Charles Geschichter and Dr. Robert Lashbrook, as, quote, boilerplates. Cover files that Dr. Geschichter noted were not worth the paper they were printed on. So while we'll never truly know the particulars of the MK-Ultra sub-projects, what we can gather from these so-called boilerplate cover files is bad enough.
The CIA did have a great interest in amnesia.
Sub-Project 23 tested the effects of certain drugs on the central nervous systems of terminally ill cancer patients. Sub-Project 87 talked about purification of extremely high-potency allergens with, quote, greater potentiality. Sub-Project 115 studied the mentally disturbed in their environment to gain further insight into influencing human behavior. Subproject 40 investigated the feasibility of aerosols to deliver various psychochemicals of interest to the CIA on non-psychotic humans. Subproject 128 tested a method of rapid hypnotic induction, while Subproject 138 involved body antennas, personal tagging, radiant energy measurement, and remote polygraphs. But the most promising means of mind control would be largely downplayed, both in the hearings and the media.
Dr. McNulty says he finds it despicable for a democracy not to ask an institution if they want to be involved in such an activity. Perhaps, he added, the plus of a democracy is eventually we learn about everything.
Not everything.
At no time has the CIA engaged in any political activity or any intelligence activity that was not approved at the highest level.
There are two major methods of altering or controlling human behavior. The first is psychological, the second, pharmacological. Neither method would be very effective for single individuals on a long-term basis.
No trial, no jail time, no explanation beyond the CIA's need to create Manchurian candidates. Raymond.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see the Red Queen?
Yes, ma'am.
Now here's what I want you to do. Key players given immunity, and the main bad guy Ewan Cameron vilified in the press. Pretty convenient to scapegoat him since he died a mysterious and untimely death hiking in the Adirondacks in 1967. Even the newspapers couldn't agree on whether it was a heart attack or an accident. No one knew that some of the men directly involved were the most well-respected and celebrated names published in leading scientific journals and defining the fields of psychology, psychiatry, and neurology. Men who simply went on treating patients as if nothing ever happened.
An illusion will be created so vast, so large that it escapes their perception. Those who see it will be thought of as insane. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the absolute. We will work together always, and we will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. We will keep their lifespans short and their minds weak while pretending to do the opposite. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. The soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from our many fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. For all this, their children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. They will see our products being used in films, and will grow accustomed to them, and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of their children and convince them that it's for their health. We will start early on, when their minds are young. We will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their minds and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicines that will make them sicker and cause other diseases for which we will create yet more medicine. We will render them docile and weak, so they succumb to us and our power. They will grow depressed, slow, and obese. When they come to us for help, we will give them more poison. We will focus their attention towards money and material goods so that they may never connect with their inner self. We will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games so that they may never be one with the oneness of all. Their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and establish opposites within. We will own both sides. We will always hide our objective, but carry out our plan. They will perform the labor for us, and we shall prosper from their toil. Our families will never mix with theirs. Our blood must be pure, always, for it is the way. We will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. We will control all aspects of their lives. We will make them kill each other when it suits us, and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them kindly and gently, letting them think they are guiding themselves. We will incite animosity between them through our factions. When a light shall shine among them, we shall extinguish it by ridicule or death, whichever suits us best. We will make them rip each other's hearts out and kill their own children. We will accomplish this by using hate as our ally, anger as our friend. Hate will bind them totally, and never shall they see that from their conflicts we emerge as their rulers. They will be busy killing each other. They will bathe in their own blood and kill their neighbors for as long as we see fit. We will benefit greatly from this, for they will not see us, for they cannot see us. We will continue to prosper from their wars and their deaths. We shall repeat this over and over until our ultimate goal is accomplished. We will continue to make them live in fear and anger through images and sounds. We will use all the tools we have to accomplish this. The tools will be provided by their labor. We will make them hate themselves and their neighbors. This they must never know. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. They must never know that color is an illusion. They must always think that they are not equal. Drop by drop, we will advance our goal. We will take over their land, resources, and wealth to exercise total control over them. We will trick them into accepting laws that will steal the little freedom that they have. We will establish a money system that will imprison them forever, keeping them and their children in debt. When they shall band together, we shall accuse them of crimes and present a different story to the world. For we will own all the media. We will use our media to control the flow of information and their sentiment in our favor. When they shall rise up against us, we will crush them like insects, for they are less than that. They will be helpless to do anything, for they will have no weapon. They must never learn this truth, for they will turn against us. For their work, they will be rewarded with earthly things and great titles, but never will they become immortal and join us. Never will they receive the light and travel the stars. They will never reach the higher realms, for the killing of their own kind will prevent passage to the realm of enlightenment. This they will never know. The truth will be hidden in their face. It will be so close that they will not be able to focus on it until it's too late. Oh yes, so grand will the illusion of freedom be that they will never know that they are our slaves. When all is in place, the reality that we have created from them will own them. This reality will be their prison. They will live in self-delusion. When our goal is accomplished, a new era of domination will begin. Their minds will be bound by their beliefs, the beliefs we have established from time immemorial. But if ever they find out that they are equal, we shall perish. This they must never know. If they ever find out that together they can conquer us, they will take action. They must never ever find out what we have done, for if they do, we shall have no place to run, for it will be easy to see who we are once the veil has fallen. Our actions will have revealed who we are, and they will hunt us down, and no person shall give us shelter.
The pace of our modern world makes it nearly impossible for working people to research the events and policies that shape their lives. When seeking answers to life's most pressing questions, where do we go first? Google. Enter the subject, hit go, and there it is. Only what they want us to see. In today's culture of copy and paste journalism, it's common for hundreds of unrelated outlets to feature the exact same report. This is not the result of laziness. This is by design. When we see identical headlines across seemingly unrelated platforms, the logical mind concludes, well then, it must be true. The illusion that numerous news sources have arrived at the same conclusion gives us confidence to share the chosen narrative. And just like that, we become the unwitting pushers of propaganda. Search engines are the holy grail for those seeking to control the narrative.
Google is already more powerful in terms of its control over people's lives than almost every government on the planet.
As the most influential search engine in the world, through its ubiquitous reach, Google has more power to influence U.S. elections than any foreign nation.
You testified before this committee. You said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
And the methods that they're using are invisible, they're subliminal, they're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences, and I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
The blacklists is something that Google said didn't exist, and they testified that under oath.
And nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Now, me as an engineer, I just did a search on Google's internal search engine, and guess what I found? It had blacklisted search terms like cancer cures. Why is Google deciding what people can and cannot search for?
What was once an efficient tool for navigating the world of information is now a network for global surveillance, data collection, and social engineering. Now let's take a look at a few of the most commonly used fact-checkers, beginning with Snopes. The husband and wife duo of David and Barbara Mickelson founded Snopes.com in 1995. They had no journalism background or training whatsoever. They built their fact-checking empire by using Google as their primary verifying source. The Mickelsons divorced in 2015. Barbara sued David for embezzling money that he allegedly spent on prostitutes, as well as a lavish honeymoon with his new wife, who worked as an escort in Las Vegas before joining the Snopes cast of characters. In 2017, David Mickelson's new business partners filed a lawsuit accusing Mickelson of multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Snopes proclaims to be the internet's go-to source for discerning what is true and what is total nonsense. Yet one glance at their history of fact-free checking tells another story. When Dr. Mikovits claimed she was arrested without a warrant and jailed without a charge, Snopes rated her statement false. Had they bothered to explore the arrest documents, they would have seen that indeed there was neither a warrant nor signatures to officiate a charge, a fact that I confirmed with members of Dr. Mikovits' legal team.
Was there a search warrant?
No.
And was she ever charged?
No. Never charged with a crime.
100% correct. Judy has never been charged with any crime.
Facebook's fact-checking arm, PolitiFact, is owned by the Poynter Institute, which has received substantial funding from big pharma allies such as Google and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Like Snopes, PolitiFact has a history of misleading the public. In late January of 2019, PolitiFact, Snopes, and FactCheck.org raced to squash the notion that coronavirus and its treatments were patented. They reviewed only 3 of the 4,452 publicly available patents, which unmistakably show that SARS coronavirus detection and treatment had been widely patented by both the public and private sectors.
Facebook's founder pledged to the WHO, saying they would remove false claims and block exploitative ads.
They're working with the World Health Organization and with the NHS, so they have a hotline, if you like, from those official sources.
Wikipedia is the go-to destination for introductions to people, places, and things. Even the all-knowing Amazon Alexa calls on this digital encyclopedia.
Alexa, who is Dr. Judy Mikovits?
According to Wikipedia, Judy Ann Mikovits is a former American research scientist who is known for her discredited medical claims. She has been described as an anti-vaccination activist and a promoter of conspiracy theories, and has been accused of scientific misconduct.
Wikipedia is supported by the Wikimedia Foundation, a non-profit parent organization with a long history of politically tied funders. Many named, many anonymous. What exactly does a Wikipedia donor receive in exchange for their generosity? What began as an unbiased open-source platform is now weaponized to undermine the work and reputation of anyone deemed a threat to its stakeholders. And once they smear you, they lock you out for making corrections to your own bio. In summary, most independent fact-checkers are neither independent nor factual. Simply put, They are political spin machines.
This is The Big Picture, an official television report to the nation from the United States Army.
It was an OSS memo, the precursor to the CIA, where they were doing a study of the use of motion pictures in America as a means of psychological warfare. So it goes all the way back to pre-1947, when U.S. intelligence was using motion pictures to alter the thinking of Americans in the United States.
The morale of our troops is high. The laughter, music, and general entertainment which comes out of a single small package like this one have helped to build that morale.
The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting out in the movies, and the population believes it.
Taxes to bury the Axis.
This document right here is a FOIA document. Anybody in America, anybody can request this. It's Freedom of Information Act. And in the 40s, they were telling you they controlled the radio stations. They controlled most of the mainstream media. They're telling you right here that motion pictures are used as psychological warfare. Why would they stop doing it?
At no time has the CIA engaged in any political activity or any intelligence activity that was not approved at the highest level.
Alan Dulles groomed and recruited Ian Fleming, and Dulles and the CIA actually helped Fleming write his books and paint the CIA in a favorable light. And they also, Dulles helped produce Thunderball to make the CIA and agents look like honorable, cool people. The CIA actually helped him write the books and write the script for that movie. And then the president of MPAA was actually providing intelligence to the CIA as an operative in that position in Hollywood.
Mr. Fleming, in your books there's a great amount of detail. Is this detail based on personal experience? Do you make it up? Where does it come from?
Well, I can say it's 90% from personal experience, really. Of course, if I started sticking too close to the true espionage work of today, I should be in trouble with the Official Secrets Act in England, even supposing I had access to information.
There's no question about the fact that Mockingbird is real. It started out paying journalists in major media, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists, to print fake stories that the CIA wanted in the press and fake interviews. And this was revealed in the Church Committee.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
And of course, then the CIA destroyed the rest of the files, which is what they do. George H.W. Bush came out and finally made the statement about Mockingbird. Well, we're going to officially stop the Mockingbird program. The CIA will no longer pay journalists to write stories. From now on, the program is voluntary, which means Mockingbird continues today. When's the last time you've seen a mainstream media outlet do a serious investigative report on the actions of the CIA? There's a reason for that.
This would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
You say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
People who work with government agencies like the CIA know the power of Hollywood entertainment and use it for control. Psychological operations, PSYOPs for short, have their own divisions in the U.S. military and are used by agencies to manipulate what you know.
Good evening, I'm Ron Burgundy.
Entertainment, news, and media are the front lines of the new war. A fifth-generation war of perceptions. How agencies and governments maintain power and control of you. How do I know this? I trained with the NSA in the same underground bunker in Hawaii where Snowden was. My career accelerated through a lengthy list of roles and assignments in privatized intelligence and unknown agencies. I ended up on suicide missions around the world. I was to be in Benghazi during the horrific siege. I knew the people there. I helped coordinate the logistics. But my plans changed, miraculously.
We're all hoping you'll be on your best behavior here in Pakistan.
To take down nations, you first break their elections. And if that doesn't work, agencies come in with guns blazing and allege something happened. I know, because I helped fix 45 elections around the world, most notably Ukraine. The Bush and Obama administrations intervened in elections for decades. The agencies got the work done. I got the work done. The State Department, under the guise of spreading freedom and democracy, was actually overthrowing governments through infiltration. Using PSYOPs. Acting like you were there to help, but actually rigging elections, inciting protests, riots, and at times, armed violence. But I decided to leave the power structure running the world. I'm Tori Says. I educate the people to help them take back their power. You need to understand that you've been toyed with, your psychology hacked like a computer. The agencies have done cultural infiltration of entertainment, news, and media in the United States of America. It's time you learn about these weapons of war, privatized to corporations and now being used on you. Psychological operations. Manipulating information to control you and your governments. This is a rare sneak peek behind the curtain of how governments and their intelligence agencies deceive and manipulate you. Enjoy the show. The movie you have been watching and participating in. The question you should ask is, who is running the show? Decision time. Spectator or participant? How do you wake up the population? The United States of America is a unique nation with a constitution that preserves rights for its citizens. It's we, the people, who tell the government what they can and can't do, not the other way around. This is freedom. Freedom from oppressive government. Yet its citizens have been betrayed through subversion of their constitutional rights. This change has been witnessed around the world, and citizens let it happen. The violation of our laws by the fourth unelected branch of government, not elected, but selected. Those seeking a democratic world order sought to convert a free nation into a totalitarian state. And too many in the agency apparatuses are helping. Compromised representatives make the United States look weak.
Bird bath or privilege scrub. They're the two exercises we're engaged, bathing exercises we're engaged in.
We have weak leadership.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
The absurdity and stupidity is what causes you to disengage from caring about your government. This is intentional. Now imagine you're an enemy of the United States. Those who oppose free citizens. They observe and think that the people of the United States of America are stupid, weak. Therefore, it's time to attack. As warfare is evolving, let me repeat. The constitutional laws that protect the citizens of the United States have been violated. This is an act of war on the people for decades of controlled candidates in Congress and presidents who built up the agencies. The fourth, unelected branch of government. How do you destroy a tank?
This is a Russian PT-76, the current Red Army amphibious tank. You could say that it was obtained, all 15 tons of it, through intelligence channels. Or you could say we stole it. Once upon a time, spying or espionage was a fairly straightforward game. But we have come a long way rather quickly from Mata Hari. There is something new in the science of spying. It's not just stealing military hardware and secret plans, but using tanks and plans and men to promote our policies around the world and sometimes to overthrow governments we don't like. Overthrow governments we don't like.
How do you destroy a tank? You destroy a tank from the inside. To invade and destroy the United States, you must infiltrate and attack from within. What becomes of a world without the U.S. Constitution? Who is infiltrating the United States of America? To understand how, we have to go back and take a good look at our history.
We've got a revealing look inside of one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies and some of the people who helped shape A-list careers.
They have packaged some of the most successful movies ever made, booked the world's highest-grossing concerts, and they control the profitable domain of television.
20 years ago, an industry phenomenon was formed by a band of renegade agents from the bowels of the formidable William Morris Agency.
Very few people outside of Hollywood know what CIA is, or those initials, and yet it follows us all day.
CIA, isn't that place in Langley?
No. You mean where everybody spies on each other?
It's CIA.
I really thought there were only two agencies. One was the KGB and one was the CIA.
The Creative Artists Agency, better known as CAA, just finished construction on a brand new building in Century City, not far from Los Angeles, California. The building is architecturally stunning and has been hailed as a new Death Star, complete with super weapons to destroy its competition.
People love to make a big deal out of an event like this. It's the Hollywood-Washington connection, West Coast, East Coast, whatever it is. People love to make a big deal out of it. And I think it's in part because of some of the similarities between your world and the political world.
I also want to say a special word of thanks to so many of you in this audience who worked for me in the last election, who made appearances for me, who helped to raise funds and helped to make arguments, and who stood up for me in the face of pretty wilting criticism. When I was upstairs meeting some of you, it was interesting to me what was mentioned going through the line. Some people said, I'm really glad you fought so hard for NAFTA and passed it. Others said, I'm glad you're trying to get a new World Trade Agreement through GATT, but I'm glad you're fighting for the interest of the entertainment industry while you're doing it.
On behalf of Ron Meyer, Bill Haber, and the entire CA family, it is our honor to present to you the President of the United States.
Do you think I don't know these people? I'm not looking at this from the outside. I have a lot of experience. I know she's married to a CIA agent. Do the math. Who's behind Time's Up? CIA. Where do they meet? CIA. Who needs good PR? CIA. Who are part of the pimp problem? CIA.
These are very powerful people you're talking about.
They are. So am I.
It's a commonly known fact that all technology is weaponized for war. The film projector doesn't get enough credit. Before the United States entered World War II, what was then the War Department worked with Hollywood to produce movies that promoted military action and recruitment. They won Best Picture in 1929 for Wings at the first Academy Awards. It was clear propaganda films would be a major tool in the conflict for the military.
Why are we Americans on the march? Is it because of Holland, Greece, or Russia?
During this time, Hollywood produced a number of pro-Soviet films to promote their stance against the Nazis.
If the Nazi dead had read his War and Peace, they would have known their fate beforehand.
Greetings, Commissar.
But today, we have one. They are dead.
The Gestapo.
Yes.
And my orders?
Is to replace those agents and continue the flow of vital information. What a girl.
It would be very nice to hear, even in Moscow.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima.
Almost immediately after the war, tensions flared up about communists in Hollywood. Congress immediately sought to identify them and remove their influence over films through what would be known as McCarthyism.
Americans feared red subversion. Congress revived the House Committee on Un-American Activities. In 1947, the committee investigated Hollywood, factory of America's imagination.
There has been a small group within the Screen Actors Guild which has consistently opposed the policy of the Guild board and officers or the Guild itself as evidenced by the vote on various issues. That small clique has been referred to, has been discussed as more or less following the tactics that we associate with the Communist Party.
It was, of course, a very big day in the history of Fulton, Missouri, when President Truman and Winston Churchill paid their visit.
One of the great privileges of my lifetime to be able to present to you that great world citizen, Winston Churchill. This means a special relationship between the British Commonwealth and Empire and the United States of America.
Global governance. It's not a new concept or recent. In fact, it was when our nation was really captured with the creation of the CIA. During World War II, the need for unified intelligence operations led to the formation of the Office of Strategic Services, which was modeled after British intelligence.
It was considered to be a very sort of chic thing to do, to belong to the OSS. There were Morgans and Vanderbilts and all sorts of society names.
America's social elite and top minds were recruited, as well as burglars and conmen. As the war on communism intensified, it was clear that the Western spies and intelligence departments had fallen behind the Soviets' KGB. So the National Security Act of 1947 was signed to solidify the importance of spy work. Under the new name, the Central Intelligence Agency, better known as CIA.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
The world citizen, Winston Churchill, gave birth to the notion Iron Curtain. They used rock stars to take the enemy they created down. All scripted, all a facade. They controlled the narrative and the counter-narrative. Music is a weapon of choice. Music sets the mood. Music influences your state of being. PSYOPs.
The CIA, for 20 years until their program was discovered, were secretly promoting certain artists and intellectuals and musicians and historians and philosophers and writers in a covert way as a kind of collective cultural NATO.
The Soviets early in the Cold War years, as well as communists in other countries, mocked the United States as a cultural wasteland. They would point to Soviet art, cinema, literature, and dance as evidence of the cultural depth of the communist state. What, they asked, did the bastion of capitalism and individual freedom have to offer?
In 1967, Thomas Braden, a former CIA officer, wrote in the Saturday Evening Post, "I remember the enormous joy I got when the Boston Symphony Orchestra won more acclaim for the U.S. in Paris than John Foster Dulles or Dwight D. Eisenhower could have ever bought with 100 speeches." And then there was Encounter, the magazine published in England dedicated to the proposition that cultural achievement and political freedom were interdependent. Money for both the orchestra's tour and the magazine's publication came from the CIA, and few outside the CIA knew that. We had placed one agent in a Europe-based organization of intellectuals called Congress for Cultural Freedom. Another agent became the editor of Encounter. The agents could not only propose anti-communist programs to the official leaders of organizations, but they could also suggest ways and means to solve the inevitable budgetary problems. Why not see if the needed money could be obtained from American foundations? As the agents knew, the CIA financed foundations. And they were quite generous when it came to national interests.
In truth, since its beginning, CIA has suffered from a personality split, for in addition to intelligence, the Security Act of 1947 ordered CIA to perform other functions and duties as directed by the President and his National Security Council. And that phrase has become a sort of blank check, authorizing CIA excursions into everything from simple propaganda to the overthrow of unfriendly governments. The key to CIA's current troubles is that unique American institution, the Tax-Free Foundation.
We would go to somebody in New York who was a well-known rich person, and we would say, we want to set up a foundation, and we would tell him what we were trying to do and pledge him to secrecy, and he would say, of course. I'll do it, and then you would publish a letterhead, and his name would be on it, and it would be the foundation. It was really a pretty simple device.
In this way, the CIA set up a huge network of phony foundations. So what America got was the formation of an unofficial hidden arts council, a consortium which consisted of the cultural elite, the museum directors, the philanthropists, the urbane millionaires, the entrepreneurs, the critics, magazine editors, and CIA personnel. One of the network's leading lights was John McCloy, a former OSS agent and one of the architects of the CIA. He later had a key position on the Ford Foundation, a hugely rich charitable trust.
At the same time, McCloy is chairman of the Ford Foundation, and according to records found in the Ford Foundation's own archives, you can see that early in the 50s, the foundation was approached repeatedly by the CIA to help them provide cover for operations that they wanted to fund overseas.
Once again, the communist world holds a festival of youth, drawing thousands of visitors from both sides of the Iron Curtain.
For cultural influence operations, the CIA targeted global youth festivals, like the one in Helsinki, Finland in 1962, which was a Soviet-run festival. This is infiltration, spreading Western views through impressionable youth. Children were used, and the CIA assets like Gloria Steinem were paid to lead them.
Larry, here's the American delegation coming through. How many of these people were aware of any kind of CIA funding, of their presence?
No, none. They were all, they came because they believed that it was important to come and represent the diversity of American views at the festival, where, after all, many Asians and Africans and Latin Americans had gathered. They were never told what to say. After all, it's not very impressive or a proof of freedom to present one monolith with another, and there was no attempt to do so.
Is this your jazz group?
Yes, we encouraged them to come. I believe they had other concerts to do in Europe as well, but we asked them to come to Helsinki. There was an art exhibition there. In 1958, when I came home from India, I discussed with student leaders, past and present, many of them active with the National Student Association. It was at that point that the student leaders said to me that they had in the past received funds for international programs from the CIA, and that they felt that this was important and could also be partly funded by the CIA. Well, the Ford Foundation, for instance, told me that they thought we were too liberal and too controversial, and that we would endanger their cultural programs in Austria. The private individuals to whom I went often had particular points of view to put forward, which would have been much, much more restricting than the CIA funds were, which were free. I mean, no one was told what to say.
What do you mean they were free? You mean to say it was easier for you to work for the CIA than a private organization?
That's right. And the reason I think that comes as a surprise, as it did to me at the time. I mean, I had the conventional liberals' view of the CIA as a right-wing incendiary group, and I was amazed to discover that this was far from the case, that they were enlightened, liberal, nonpartisan activists of the sort who characterized the Kennedy administration, for instance.
When we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue, disinformation is not necessarily a lie, it may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him, that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually, the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. And I would say our percentage planning that kind of data was 70 to 80%. Correspondents we targeted were those who had terrific influence, the most respected journalists in Saigon, like Robert Chaplin of the New Yorker magazine, Kai's Beach of the Los Angeles Times from time to time, and also he worked for the Chicago Daily News. Bud Merrick of U.S. News and World Report, Malcolm Brown of the New York Times, even Maynard Parker of Newsweek magazine. We would go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across, which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job.
During the 20th century, Hollywood grew to be a symbol for Western culture and governance. Entertainment has always been used to capture the minds of humankind, like a siren song. Keeping people distracted. American influence through pop culture spread everywhere. While spies were being exposed, American pop culture succeeded by infiltrating a Soviet general. Yuri Zhukov had a taste for Coca-Cola. It is said that a U.S. general asked Coca-Cola to manufacture a clear version of the drink, so it would look like vodka instead of his favorite sugary beverage. At the time when the U.S. and Soviet Russia were at nuclear stalemate, Western culture spread. War shifted into covert cultural funds in order to shift the other nation's perspective on their adversaries. This is cultural infiltration.
On August 12th and 13th, East met West at Moscow's Lenin Stadium for the loudest dose of musical détente to date.
And I'm really proud that they've all taken their time and effort and this support to help the foundation to bring awareness to kids on drug and alcohol abuse.
Doing something like this on the 20th anniversary of Woodstock.
To start
in the right direction, and maybe rock and roll can do what the politicians couldn't.
Just to show people all over the world that Russians can enjoy our music and we can enjoy theirs without any of those political things. And that's the beginning of some peace.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Listening to the wind of change.
How do you measure such an astonishing moment in history? The East German government said tonight they were going to make more openings in the wall, at least a dozen more.
And I want all Americans to know that I'm committed to attacking our economic problems at home with the same determination we brought to winning the Cold War.
Я прекращаю свою деятельность.
I am ceasing my activities in the post of President of the USSR.
The tricolor banner of the Russian Republic now flies over the Kremlin.
Innocence abroad. The new world of spyless coups. The key operatives in the conspiracy turned out to be telephones, televisions, and fax machines. We didn't need the CIA to support Yeltsin's counter coup. We just needed a telephone operator listening. The old concept of covert action, which had embarrassed the agency during the past 40 years, was obsolete. And it includes political support operations for pro-democracy activists, which may be best left to the new network of overt operators. That's especially true in the realm of what used to be called propaganda and now can simply be called information. Frank Wisner, the head of the CIA covert operations during the mid-1950s, once remarked that he could play his media assets like a mighty Wurlitzer. Today, the mighty Wurlitzer exists. Mainstream media, like CNN, their objective, omnipresent, real-time coverage of the news helps American interests.
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Covert funding for these groups would have been the kiss of death if discovered. Overt funding has been a kiss of life. Who is the director of this operation? The CIA. I mean, CAA. An agency that doesn't exist. Creative Artists Agency. In the same way CIA used Coca-Cola, this is a PSYOP. For the animation work, creator Ken Stewart of CAA hired a visual effects company involved with Hollywood movies. Once again, cultural infiltration.
They managed to construct an entertainment edifice of gigantic proportions, which has changed the way that Hollywood does business.
James Andrew Miller is the author of Powerhouse, the untold story of Hollywood's Creative Artists Agency. If people have never heard of CAA and they don't know this agency, what makes this book exciting?
It's why I did it. There's kind of a paradox of sorts, right? Very few people outside of Hollywood know what CAA is or those initials, and yet it follows us all day. I mean, they're part of our lives, probably more so than any of us realize, from Game of Thrones to Star Wars.
Ovitz co-founded Creative Artists Agency, a dominating force in the talent agent business. He helped shape the careers of, listen to this roster, Steven Spielberg, Meryl Streep, Bill Murray, and David Letterman. He is also the agent behind classic movies like Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, Schindler's List, and Rain Man. I have to tell you that I am a CAA girl, Very, very proud to be represented by the firm.
Going to a Chipotle, CA does their marketing. I mean, you turn on the radio, Katy Perry's there, that's CA. I mean, so I love the idea that there's this little iceberg there. People in Hollywood know it, but below the surface, there's a lot unknown.
And the reason I like CAA is because Fred Spector gives the best presents, and he can crush anybody that gets in my way.
And the occasional mental programming.
Michael Ovitz is planning to take over the world. That's his plan. You know, this guy's negotiating. Don't you know they handle everybody on the space shuttle?
However, CAA has endured and come to represent most of the top talent in Hollywood.
Hello, I'm John Lovitz. I'm an actor, but I'm not acting now. Well, happy birthday, CAA. 20 years. Indeed.
In 2011, the overt collaboration of CAA agencies and the CIA became clear with the show Homeland. A political influence operation on cable television.
She's won 2 Emmys and a pair of Golden Globe Awards for her starring role on Homeland, a heart-pounding show which in recent seasons has anticipated real-life events.
If you look through sort of saw the Paris attack coming, predicted that, a president under congressional investigation, fake news, Russia being involved, all those themes were on your show before they actually happened in real life.
Yeah, it's pretty uncanny.
It's pretty uncanny.
I'm a mad fan for the Homeland. The show's been incredibly prescient in years before. Are there things we're going to learn about America or about our intelligence community 6 months from now that you'll be broadcasting on February 11th? I mean, what is the thing? You can't tell me anything. What am I doing?
I can-ish.
Do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Burmell, who is one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there, and he recently retired.
Who did the cast meet with? Who was writing the script? Henry Burmell, son of a CIA agent. CAA does the casting and promotion, but the Central Intelligence Agency was writing the script of what is to come. Sounds like time traveling to me.
But in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
really?
Yeah.
Is it like, you know?
So we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to, like, real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising thing that they've told you about their jobs or something you would need to know from
Well,
there?
every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while and the climate has changed.
Homeland seems to be the enemy telling the world what they're going to do. And the world is watching the movie, unknowing that there are real consequences to the movie they're watching. It's as if they're dictating to all right under your nose what the next phase is. They're telling you their plan out in the open. What's the collateral damage in this war? The collateral damage is the spectator. You.
But this year it was all about, you know, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this season? How long?
We started in late August, September.
Because things didn't really go south between the present real administration and the intelligence community until the fall.
There wasn't great faith at the very beginning, I don't think.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah. The open hostility really started this past fall, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it wasn't so open, but it was real.
And these people knew about it.
Yeah.
And they told you and you put it into a script.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't so eager to populate the State Department.
Did you hear that? The State Department. The ones that are responsible for foreign affairs. As a reminder, You're paying and even enjoying their communications out in the open. They're mocking you. They have the world in a trance watching the train wreck in slow motion. And the audience is on the train. Pure evil.
I'd like to figure out what I'm going to make jokes about in about 4 months. Could I read any of the scripts that you've got coming up? We'll just save
I don't know.
so
Look,
much time.
we're it's not an exact mirror, but it is a riffing on what is happening. It's like a parallel vision.
Probably too irreverently say Carrie worked for me. Okay, minus the sex, the drugs, and the bipolar thing, but Carrie worked for me. And frankly, that's true.
I'd like to think that what we do on Homeland that's different from what people in the real CIA or in Spy Masters does is that we are trying to give the poetic version. I'm touched by the patriotism of Brennan, who I met, who I went into his office. Why did he bring me in his office? What did he want me to see? Why would he bring you in his office? Why would he allow his cameras in his office? And I believe he wants you to see his humanity.
The hearing to confirm John Brennan as head of the CIA got off to a rocky start. Activists protested against the U.S. drone program, which Brennan helped to create.
It's a thriller based on the true story of CIA agent Tony Mendez, who hatched a plot to free 6 Americans during the 1979 Iran hostage crisis by having them pretend to be a film crew.
And so you think of something that's literally out of Hollywood.
I think of Hollywood because I had some dealings with Hollywood and I trusted them. I knew some really smart people out there.
A little history on the whole 70s Iranian revolution. Who was part of that revolution? Who instigated it? It was actually Peter Strzok's father and Barack Hussein Obama's mother, Stanley Ann Dunham. Back then, Peter Strzok was raised in Iran.
They're a Canadian film crew for a science fiction movie. I fly into Tehran. We all fly out together as a film crew.
In order to make this work, you actually have to set up a real production company in Hollywood.
Yeah, we had to find real estate on one of the studios out in Hollywood. Our consultants there helped us find some real estate, and we created a production company that we called Studio 6 Productions. Within a few days, we had a movie script, we had a company. First thing we did is went down to Hollywood Reporter and to Variety and took out full-page ads, which I designed a poster that said, Argo, a cosmic conflagration.
It was when you receive one of the highest decorations in the CIA and then it becomes so clear that you're going to have to keep it secret.
Yep.
No one's going to know.
For 8 years.
And now 30 years later, the whole world knows. How does that feel?
It's a terrible thing. Our job is to keep the secrets, not give them away. We've given it away, haven't we? How are we going to get the genie back in the bottle?
It was the CIA itself that let the genie out. When they celebrated their 50th anniversary, the boss wanted to make a PR splash. Mendez was ordered to go public with the story of the Canadian caper.
I said, why are we going to give away our best secret?
The CIA has a long history of maintaining power, be it dictators or presidents. For the United States, that means ensuring the pre-selected candidate is the commander-in-chief. And if free thinkers go off script, they pull a coup.
So help me God.
Keeping the truth from the people is one of their core functions, like the Bay of Pigs.
The president of a great democracy, such as ours, and the editors of great newspapers, such as yours, owe a common obligation to the people. An obligation to present the facts, to present them with candor, and to present them in perspective.
Bad things happen when you try to bring an end to the agency. Public approval was at an all-time low when the Church Committee hearings in the Senate exposed MK-Ultra assassinations and the now infamous heart attack gun. So CIA Director George H.W. Bush went to work to make sure his secrets never got told.
Do you think Congress should have the authority to release secret material?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't think that any branch, that the legislative branch of government should unilaterally be empowered to release secret documents. I simply don't feel that way. We cannot run an intelligence business on that kind of basis. And part of it's secret, and I'm going to see that it stays secret.
I mean, the people that were working on the news media was a CIA guy. There were other CIA people involved. And the CIA officers themselves say, we didn't, Church didn't get anything we didn't give him.
At will to the best of my ability.
A voice for the people had emerged and became very popular with bold ideas.
Government in the United States, federal, state, and local, has been growing for 20 years in size about 2.5 times as fast as the increase in population. When you and I were boys back in the Midwest,
right,
governments, federal, state, and local, were only taking about 15 cents out of every dollar earned. Today, they're taking almost half of every dollar earned in the United States.
This Hollywood actor turned president was deemed a problem, and his health deteriorated after he was shot. Reagan's absence was an opportunity for this soon-to-be president, but everyone in intelligence knows within the agency. Bush Sr. was a 3-term president. Clinton's CIA connections trace back to cocaine operations with former President Bush in Arkansas, where Bill was governor. The next president was a CIA director's son and stayed right on script. And the best actor of them all, groomed for decades to be cast for his role in this movie, Barack Hussein Obama.
A 25-year veteran of the CIA. John knows what our national security demands.
It's fitting that the man who made him president should be CIA director, John Owen Brennan, the drone king, and also the guy that personally signed off on the 19 visas for the 19 hijackers of all those planes that hit the United States on 9/11. How do I know? He trained me too.
The newest version of the 2013 NDAA included an interesting amendment. This amendment legalized domestic propaganda on the American public. You heard me right. The newest NDAA wasn't just reauthorizing the indefinite detention of American citizens. It also allowed the U.S. government to legally carry out misinformation campaigns against the citizens of this country. But is this really surprising to anyone? I mean, the corporate media is basically a propaganda arm of the U.S. government anyways, isn't it?
I think Barack Obama has proved feckless and weak. In essence, what the Democratic administration has done is codified the destruction of domestic and international law that was put in place by the Bush administration. I mean, remember, he's not even restored habeas corpus.
The 2016 elections were a massive moment in the war on the people, beginning with the primary elections. Those were fixed too.
I am truly honored to nominate Bernie Sanders for President of the United States.
In an email released by WikiLeaks sent to Tulsi Gabbard in February of 2016, it says, "Representative Gabbard, we were very disappointed to hear that you would resign your position with the DNC so you could endorse Bernie Sanders, a man who has never been a Democrat before. Hillary Clinton will be our party's nominee, and you standing on ceremony to support the sinking Bernie Sanders ship is disrespectful to Hillary Clinton. You have called both myself and Michael Kives before about helping your campaign raise money. We no longer trust your judgment, so we'll not be raising money for your campaign." That email was then forwarded to the Clinton campaign and John Podesta. With the message, "Hammer dropped." Who were the emails from? Darnell Strom and Michael Kives, both CAA employees and sent from their CAA email accounts.
New NBC News Marist poll numbers from Iowa and New Hampshire bring good and bad news for hopefuls on both sides. Here are 3 key takeaways. Number 1, Democrats are ready for Hillary.
Hillary Clinton, being a former First Lady, has well-established connections to the CIA versus Donald J. Trump, an outsider and a former campaign donor to the Clintons. I wonder why he stopped.
And I led a very nice life, but I also love our country. And this was an easy decision. I went from being the ultimate insider to being an outsider like they've never seen before. We are doing so well. This is a movement like they've never, ever seen before.
From the moment Donald J. Trump rode down the escalator to begin his candidacy, it was no holds barred agency propaganda, smears, and assets coming out of the woodwork to ensure he didn't win.
That's not going to happen.
He's not going to be president. Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank.
Okay.
I guarantee it.
All right. I think that man will be president of the United States right about the time that spaceships come down filled with dinosaurs and red capes.
On that note, Tom.
Take it from me. How about that?
Cheers, Tom. And then, of course, there's Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
So when you stand and deliver that State of the Union address, in no part of your mind or brain can you imagine Donald Trump standing up one day and delivering a State of the Union address?
Well, I can imagine it in a Saturday night skit. I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
They wanted to install the pre-selected candidate. In frequent attendance at the Clinton campaign trail were a plethora of CAA talent, between the support of entertainment and even the CAA news talent. The narrative was Clinton would easily win.
The only way we can prove that to you is by having lots of famous people. Lots of famous people.
Lots and lots of famous people.
The CIA has a long history of election interference in foreign countries. And you guessed it, they manipulated these polls too.
She leads Donald Trump there by 6 points.
And look at all these wins we're projecting for Hillary Clinton right now.
This story had an unexpected plot twist for the agency normally in control. Defying perceptions, Donald J. Trump won the presidency. But this story is far from over. The CIA agency apparatus failed to secure the presidency as they had for decades and took swift action with multiple operations between election and inauguration. Beginning with an urgent update to the NDAA.
Now, of course, when all of us are not paying attention, spending time with our family, exchanging gifts and having dinner, Barack Hussein Obama quietly signed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act into law. This is a draconian law in its inception and its nature that will have huge ramifications when it comes to independent media and also your free speech.
Propaganda and lies are exactly what they did. All attempts to stall or eliminate his inauguration failed.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate?
Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
So that was a very tainted election, and in that sense, it's illegitimate.
I, Donald John Trump, do
And on January
swear,
20th, Donald John Trump became the 45th president.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
The agency doesn't like a president who gives power back to the people. Therefore, the intelligence-manufactured influence operation called the Russia dossier was deployed, attempting to erase the embarrassment and damage that truth, brought to us by WikiLeaks, and the Trump election victory had done to the reputation of the agency apparatus. Let me introduce you to Adam Waldman. His texts reveal how Hollywood was right in the middle of the phony dossier. Most known for being Johnny Depp's lawyer, he was the point of contact between Hollywood, British intelligence operative Christopher Steele, and a staff member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Daniel J. Jones, a Dianne Feinstein staffer who drafted the CIA torture documents and also had a movie produced about him, as played by Adam Driver. His foundation/company funded this dossier.
From a text message conversation between United States Senator from Virginia, Mark Warner, and Hollywood lawyer Adam Waldman. February 16, 2017 at 10:49 p.m., Senator Mark says, "Have had important call about your message. We'll have to answer tomorrow." Adam responds 8 minutes later, "Thank you, standing by. Just want to underscore my opinion and the reason I got involved. This guy is going to do something catastrophic for the Dems, Obama, CIA, and national security. I hope someone will consider getting him to the U.S. to ameliorate the damage."
Who are they talking about?
"This guy is going to do something catastrophic for the Dems, Obama, CIA, and national security." 2 months later, on April 10, 2017, Adam Waldman sends a text to Senator Warner. "Hi, Steele would like to get a bipartisan letter from the committee. Assange, I convinced him to make serious and important concessions, and I am discussing those with DOJ. Deripaska, willing to testify to Congress but interested in state of play with Manafort. I will be with him next Tuesday for a week. I'm bringing Ben Stiller for the Day of Hill and administration meetings on refugee issues in May. Would you like me to bring him by your office?" Senator Mark Warner responds, "Sure." Lawyer Adam Waldman replies over 4 hours later, "Mark, call me anytime you want to discuss the above three. I am glad to communicate or try to accomplish whatever you want to do." 8 days later, on April 18, 2017, Senator Warner replies, "Been off the grid for a few days. Need to get up with you this week, on phone."
Daniel J. Jones, a month prior to this text, met with Adam Waldman, who was Igor Deripaska's lawyer, and Adam did pro bono work for Julian Assange. These texts highlight how damaging Assange is to the Democrats, to Obama, and the CIA, and how it was very important that they bring him to the United States. And for some reason, Christopher Steele was in the middle of all of that. This is treason. Treason against the people of the United States. Not only that, the Film Actors Guild, Ben Stiller, an envoy to the United Nations, involved in Steele discussions with people on the Hill? Steele and Daniel J. Jones paid Igor Dachenko, an FBI informant who lied, to help manufacture the phony Russian dossier. The George Soros-funded Penn Quarter Group, which was founded by Daniel J. Jones, a former FBI agent who paid Fusion GPS, and author of The Russian Dossier, Christopher Steele. And as you just learned, it's Obama, the CIA, and the politicians that have a problem with Julian Assange, not the people.